Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And you get more information at our website, which is blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Chuck Taft, perhaps one of the most positive people I know. And he's also a conductor, music director, professor, music minister. And Chuck, you can feel free to wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. Okay.
Hey.
And that's Chuck Taft. And Chuck, as you'll see, is a busy individual with Taft Enterprises. He works as a conductor, music director, professor, music minister at UNC Asheville, Mars Hill University, First Congregational, UCC, Asheville, Reuter Center Singers, Gibbons Estates Choirs, and many more theaters in the area. The only thing I don't see, Chuck, because I guess you're not home now, you were telling me, is I don't see your roller skates. Where are they?
I think they blew a few wheels.
Well, you laugh, but I don't know how you get from everywhere. And you were telling me off the air, you also have a calendar. It must be a calendar full of a lot of stuff in it, is it?
It is jam-packed. And then when you add into it my kids' schedule, trying to figure that out, I just am hang on for dear life every day.
Do you still use you mentioned a calendar on the wall, or do you use it on your phone?
I have had to go to electronic calendaring so that my wife and my children can also see where I am and what's going on.
Okay, so they can keep track of you. But I did the same thing too, because I'd use my paper calendar, and I used a day timer for like 40 years, but to give it up, I'm glad I did. I love electronic catalog. But Chuck, the question I always ask, as a child, you grew up again where?
I actually grew up in Western North Carolina on the Ivy River in North Buncombe County. We had 1 acre in Madison and 9 in Buncombe. And I say in my bio, I'm a near native, Blaine. I wasn't born here, but my family moved here when I was 5. And so I've grown up here. I'm a product of the area, and I did something unique. I stayed. And so I've just had the benefit of growing up around many gracious, talented mentors and teachers that have given me wonderful opportunities that my resume should have never allowed in the beginning. And so I learned by sitting at the feet of people that were doing, not just teaching, although I've had some great teachers.
When you were a kid growing up, did you always know you wanted to be a music guy?
That is so interesting. Early on, I enjoyed music. I, like many people, was terrible at practicing. I can't believe I was actually fired by my first piano teacher, my second one. And some people local that have been here for a long time will remember the name Irene Clark. That lady, I am sure, is a saint. She put up with me and loved me, even if the only practice I did every week was in her studio for my 30-minute lesson. But she took me on to teach me voice and piano. And I never quite got it when I was studying with her, but her love and enthusiasm for me and my efforts, however paltry they were, kind of propelled me forward. And I kept thinking, wouldn't it be fun she was conducting, Weaverville has been doing a Messiah Sing for over 50 years that she started. And I sang in that, and I thought that was thrilling. Wouldn't that be fun to do it? And I'll be dang, Blaine, if I haven't had the opportunity. Weaverville brought me back last year to conduct their Messiah.
Is she still around? Is she still around?
No, she died.
Okay.
Her husband came to Weaverville as a Methodist minister, and she taught piano lessons and directed the church choir, and then volunteered at the high school at North Buncombe High School because they didn't have a choral program. And I just am so grateful for her legacy, and then for Ruth Mosley, who was at the high school, and Jim DeBrule, who taught drama there. Those people got me started.
Do you still have an aversion to practice?
You know what? I have learned that sight reading and faking it only goes so far. Another one of my teachers, Dr. Julie Fortney at Mars Hill University, Mars Hill College then, she's the one that kind of set me aside and said, Chuck, you are a sweet young man and you have talent, but charm will only get you so far. And wow, that hurt, but I learned a lesson that I do need to do the work.
Well, it's probably a great lesson you learned, not only for yourself, but also for your students as well, because you tell them that story too.
I tell it all the time.
Because I just love it. And I guess it's interesting. We won't mention any names, but in terms of working with some college students, it's probably interesting for you in terms of the range of talents you have. Because again, I'm thinking out loud with a show, and we can talk about it as well, Sweet Charity, which I just loved. And you were a musical director of that show?
Yes, I was.
Okay. But that show was interesting in the sense that you had some really talented folks, I mean, big talents. You see a future potential, and some people weren't quite as good, honestly. And that must be tough for you, is it, when you work with different ranges?
It's very interesting, Blaine, that you had mentioned that, and I might veer off, but if I
Please,
forget to
yeah.
come back, please help me. But my career has been built on working with amateurs, folks that have a desire to do something, whether it be in a choir or be on stage in community events. And I uniquely find a way to pull something out of them. It's been the thrill of my life. I don't get on stage. All I do is in the pit, cue them to start, and then they have to do it. But I work with them hard. And so even in the educational, like the Sweet Charity you saw, there were some folks that are willing to do that work that I mentioned earlier, and willing to let me kind of ask some important questions and then them work to answer it and get to it. And you saw it. Will be able to say, we knew her when,
Right,
or
right.
we knew him when. And then there are others that just didn't quite embrace the process. And well, and many of your listeners will know, that theater is a process. There's a beginning and lots of visions that come from the playwright and then the directors and the designers. And then we work hard to bring it. And then there's opening night, and that's the product. And some actors I have found embrace that process, lean in hard. They can't wait to see what they can discover, and others don't. And that's just the way it goes.
Do some never get there, though? In other words, even if they want to embrace the concept and they want to work hard and spend a lot of time on it, they just don't have the, I guess, innate talent.
I I used to think everybody could be brought along. I think I have realized, Blaine, that not, there is some giftedness that's part of the process. And then for some people, it takes a while to draw it out. I was one of those people that took a long time. I was a precocious young man, and I had enthusiasm, but I was a much better entertainer than I was an actor. And it took me a long time to figure out the difference between somebody that could get up and smile and entertain an audience versus somebody who can embody that process I was speaking about and really lean into a character, develop what the composer and the playwright has given you, and then take the directors and move forward with it. That's a very hard process, and it's not many people are excellent at that.
You mentioned that you haven't performed, and I don't think I've seen you in the pit performing. It's just, I sometimes tell you I get a kick out of just watching you because you're so enthusiastic in the pit. But in local theater, though, you haven't done any actual performances?
Interestingly, no. I love to sing. My undergraduate degree was in vocal performance.
Right.
I got a Bachelor of Music in Vocal Performance from Western Carolina. Dr. Mary Kay Bauer really was a great lady that taught me a lot about my instrument, and I've had the chance to share that with lots of students since then. But really, I just need to be honest. I am not a great actor. I understand what should happen, but letting go of my own judgments and giving over to a character is something I struggle with. And I think I'm glad I captured that at some point, so that I realized that my talent is on this side of the music stand, where I can try to discern the composer, what the composer's given us and what the playwright and the lyricists have given us, and challenge those that are really good at embracing acting, giving over to a character and leaning into direction. I have the pleasure to direct many people that are so much better than me. I used to have so much hubris, Blaine, that I would be in the pit out at Hart Theater when I was kind of getting started, thinking, oh, I could do that. I could do that so much better. No, I couldn't.
It's funny you say that because you mentioned as a kid, were you in high school and college productions at all?
I was in high school productions at North Buncombe Summer Theater and in their productions. And then I had a chance really early on to be on some SART productions back in the 80s.
You were in them?
I was in them, yes.
Because I could just see you. You're saying, that's not your thing, but I could just see you being so, such an enthusiastic guy. Because even it's fun, like I said, to watch you when you conduct. You do with such joy and enthusiasm. If can I say, it actually looks like you're having fun when you're doing that. Which is
Blaine,
great.
I don't know how to do it. I have a personal mission statement, and this is my personal mission statement.
Please.
People over process in a positive and possibility filled environment. I think that people matter, and I can get them. I work hard, but I'm going to do it in a positive way. I'm not going to tear them down. I will offer honest criticism. And that's not me saying you're bad. That's me being honest. But then I'm gonna really try hard to give you a vision of how it can improve. That's just how I'm built.
And talk about one of your students, if you will, and I want to get your reaction to this one. But I've also gotten a kick out of watching your daughter. You and your daughter, and she's going into theater as well. Is that correct?
I'm actually doing this interview from Winston-Salem. She moves in tomorrow morning into the North Carolina School of the Arts, for starting her freshman year to get her BFA in theater. It was the largest applicant pool they've ever had, and I'm so proud that she got through it. She really wants to embrace this, and I'm all for it.
And one of the joys I've had is watching not only you, but watching you. I'm getting a chill talking about watching you perform with your daughter. And I've seen it not a lot of times, but a bunch of times. And it's just so much fun to watch the two of you. And talk about that a little bit. Is that fun for you too?
I tell you, we as parents always wish that our children could do better than us. At least I do. And it has been, my dad used to joke, and if you met him today, Blaine, and I hope you meet him sometime, he will still tell you he's known as Chuck's dad. He's not known as Neil Taft.
Sure.
And I have the pleasure to be known now as Kaylee's dad. I used to be Chuck Taft. Now I'm Kaylee's dad. She is when she walks out and she smiles, it's honest. It's not made up. And when she sings, it's pure and it's honest and it comes from her heart. And that inspires me to be a better performer whenever I've had the chance to perform with her when she was 6 or when she was 16 or now that when she's 18. We love to sit at home around the piano and just sing together. It's such a delight.
It must have been one of the first times I ever saw the two of you together, but it was such a delight just watching you. And as a kid, you could just see it. You talk about kids have a talent. You could just see there was something there, and what she wasn't nervous. She was just really into it, and she continued with it. So,
and Blaine, she does something. Remember, I was talking about I wasn't so good at the process and practice. Oh my gosh, my daughter stays until 2 or 3 in the morning if she doesn't have something completely memorized or a paper to write, and such a much better student. And the work ethic to be an actor requires so much work. People, audiences, and they don't have to know that. They don't show up to see somebody's work process. They show up to be moved by the story, to delight or to feel emotions that they didn't even know existed. And that's on the actor to convey that. There's so much work that goes on to get to that moment. And my daughter embraces that. And it's really made me a better teacher to see how she engages that process and to help her with her work behind the scenes. It kind of allowed me to rethink some of the tried and true methods. I've realized that, there's a real human being here, and there's a way you're supposed to do it. And then there's people. And so she's having a chance to grow up with her has really helped me be better at evaluating that and engaging the real people again. So I'm grateful.
As you said, one of the things that I'm amazed at when I watch theater is, as you point out, the time that's put into it. That's why I so support live theater, because I feel bad sometimes, Chuck. They do only a show for 2 weekends or something, 6 performances. And they've been working on this for months, and every night, it's just incredible time that people put into it, and they
and it's not just the actors they see, the tech people, the management, the props masters, the costumers, and usually two of them. And I think audiences would be amazed. Well, I bet they don't even really pay attention at the end of a movie. If you just think about a movie, the hundreds of names that go by
Right,
at the end.
right.
There might be 10 actors or 20 actors, but there's going to be 100 people behind those actors getting that moment ready for an audience to view.
It's like I interviewed a stage manager several months ago. It was great because nobody realizes the importance of that stage manager, and you don't see her or him on stage, but boy, are they important factors. Let's talk about something else, Chuck. You and I have discussed off the air, but it's kind of a thing that I really am aware of, and that's with the idea of musicals or music performances in general are changing. That one of the things I love is seeing live music. And I've loved watching you in the pit and directing a musical. Yet, unfortunately, it seems most theaters now are going to tracks. And what's your feeling about that whole process?
I'm of two minds of that. I'm old school now, Blaine, in that I grew up only with the option for live pits, and I growing up at little North Buncombe High School, I was so impressed that Ruth Mosley and Jim DeBrule would get together an orchestra. They found money, they found people in the community that would give them just a few bucks and musicians that would come out. And I grew up doing that. And then I had the pleasure to start most of my theater career out at Hart Theater, that Steve Lloyd really invested in orchestras. And other theaters, ACT would give an inordinate amount of money. It's very expensive to get high quality musicians to support the actors. And yet we are in the 21st century when technology has made the ability to get quality instruments available. And so, you can hear a musician go sing to a karaoke track, and it's really can be hokey or really good. And so we referenced Sweet Charity. What a great show. Tune after tune after tune.
Yeah, one of my
And
favorites. Yeah.
great story. And so we at Mars Hill University were faced with small funds to pull off a great grand musical. And so we made the painful choice to go with a track. And I agreed with that, and it hurt my heart because I have been an advocate for live musicians and for them to get paid a living wage. They work hard, they show up for all the rehearsals, and we just were not going to be able to do justice to that show. So here I am. You hear my tension. I'm working it out. Speaking out of both sides of my mouth. I think in general, live theater matters. Yes, we could record it once, just do it, and then you could show up every night in a theater somewhere and watch on a screen, but you're not moved. You don't see the breath. You don't feel it. When somebody yells or sings, you're not feeling those vibrations in your chest like you do when you show up into a theater, and you can't experience it in the corporate way that we do. And we need more opportunities to be together as a community, and theater pulls us together like that.
Well,
yes,
my theory.
we have great sound systems at home, but it just is not the same.
Well, it's not, because I think, Chuck, I gave you my theory once on the music, the track versus live performers. That'd be the same thing too, as I go to theater, and we could have every mouth the words, so we don't have the singers sing. They could just, whatever. It's just not the same. Yet, compliment to you, the very next show at Saw It, it was at Saw It, yeah. You came
Yes.
back a couple weeks later, did another show, My Way, and there you had all live musicians.
Yep, Sarah Fowler, Dave Bruce really brought it, and Sarah on the bass. It was and that made a difference because the actors then had a little bit ability to hold for a laugh line or to lean into a moment. And that's what a live musician can do. They can give you the space to be organic and be in the moment, which you can't with the track. You are stuck with that technology, and God forbid there's a power blip.
Well, back to the two you mentioned, two of my favorites, Sarah and David. It was also just fun to watch them, and they get so much into the performing, and especially My Way with Sarah on the keyboard. She was interacting, I guess, with the performers, and just what a difference, and that was quite a show to do. Well, Sinatra, 55 songs,
Yes, it was. It was a great show. I think that it barely held together as a story,
Right,
but who
exactly.
loved the tunes, right?
And to the credit, the performers were very good too. But yeah, point well taken. Not my favorite show, but I love the music and and the performers. Chuck, talk a little bit also about now the different kinds of people you work with. So I've seen you in the pit for several shows at Hard and Sod as well. But then you do so much work in the community, and talk a little bit about that. The couple of groups you work with in the community.
I had the pleasure of almost 25 years ago, I guess now, founding the Reuter Center Singers, which were started out of the College for Seniors program that UNCA is famous around the country. People moved to Asheville to be part of Ollie, the
And
College
by
for
the way,
Seniors.
small world. Just before you, I interviewed Catherine Frank, and we talked about Reuter. So, but I don't know the story of the Reuter Singers. How'd that come about?
I'm the one of the original founders of the College for Seniors program approached me when I had started at UNCA conducting the UNCA Community Chorus, and we talked about creating a program for seniors, a seniors choir, and out of that we founded the Reuter Center Singers, and that's been going for 25 years. My partner Nora Vitro, who's accompanied for many shows with me over the last 25 years. We started that, and it's not just for retired folks, but it's mostly staffed with people that have a chance to get back to singing or always sang and want to do it. And you don't need to audition, you just come and join. But that doesn't mean we don't do great music. We'll sing with our university chorale once a year, and we'll sing with the university orchestra or band. And then we'll sing pop tunes, we'll sing Sinatra, we'll sing maybe the Rat Pack songs, or we'll sing Johnny Nash, I can see clearly now, as well as we'll sing Vivaldi's Gloria. So it's a mishmash. And then I've also had the chance to do a choir over Gibbons Estates in a religious context with all those staffed with, I think the median age of my choir is about 80. But I'll tell you, I had a lady that she just died recently, and she was 96, but she sang in the Metropolitan Opera in
Wow.
her heyday, and she had retired to Asheville and was living at Gibbons Estates. And I mean, I'm amazed at the talent that this area attracts.
Could you, with the woman you just mentioned, could you tell at one time she had been a great singer? Could you
Oh,
tell it?
she was absolutely a fantastic singer, and still had something to offer. When I got my graduate degree, I wrote my master's thesis on the aging voice. And so it's really been great to work with the Reuter Center Singers or Gibbons Estates or any of what I learned about the aging voice also applies to the 20-year-olds when I teach at UNCA and Mars Hill University. It's community singing is something that has been going on from the beginning of recorded history. From the pictures in the caves, we've had music. And we're built as humans to be communal music makers. Something about us as Western European trained folks, we get confused. We think, well, I'm not meant to sing, or I've aged out of singing. That's not true. Birth to death, we are meant to be singers in community. So that's kind of, I'm an evangelist for that.
Well, you're giving me hope then. So you're saying there's hope for me that I can still.
Absolutely.
Well, you mentioned something very interesting. You said that with the Reuter singers, so you'll take anybody. There's no audition. You take anybody. Do you have some people who can't sing or not sing well?
So rarely has that happened. 2 or 3 times we've had people that just are truly tone deaf, like they could sing some things, but we found ways they needed community. So we found ways to make sure that it didn't mess up the whole. Or we had one gentleman that he turned 90, and he was suffering from I forget where you lose control of your Parkinson. He had
Right.
Parkinson's. He sang with us for 10 years with Parkinson's, and right near the end, he couldn't hold himself up. He couldn't hold his music. Except I let him sing a solo the year before he died, and he couldn't talk. You couldn't understand him, but he started singing and he sang beautifully. So that's what we do. We just kind of make ways for people to be allowed to make music.
Well, Chuck, I guess the secret, and I don't know if I sent it to you, but the secret is that the song you should choose for that guy or for me is Tequila. you know. And you
I
laugh.
might have heard you sing that
I
song.
just did it recently this past week. So that was my 3 words. I can do it and memorize
I
it.
heard you do it back. Was it in May, I think?
Yeah, I did it a couple times
What a
now.
delightful program you and Liz
Yeah.
and the group did. That was so much fun.
Well, it's talk a little bit about that process too, Chuck, which I find fascinating. And you mentioned the guy with Parkinson's, but also people with dementia, that you can't memorize stuff, but for some reason they can memorize music. Is that the case?
Our brain is an amazing thing. There's some research that was going on down in New Zealand and in Australia about people that had had massive strokes, that had
Right.
lost the ability to communicate. Their brain still worked, but they couldn't, there wasn't connected with their voice. But through using music therapy, the new connections were made around the part of the brain that had died because of the stroke. And then they were able to learn to communicate in some ways again. Our brain is built for it to be a communication device. And that's why I say music, we're meant to sing in community. Maybe you haven't sung for 70 years, but let's say you might, anyway, I don't want to go there. I'll just say that it's great for people with dementia. It's great with people that don't have dementia. It's a really, we can do the New York Times crossword, and that definitely keeps something going. But there's something magical about having to listen side to side and then find a way for you to fit in, match rhythm, match pitch, use words and language. And that does something magical for us as we age, from when we start learning music in second grade or wherever it starts in school until, we no longer are breathing on this earth.
What about for you? It's probably exciting when you work with folks who haven't done music for 20 or 30 years. And do they come back to you and revisit it?
Oh, absolutely. And they're like, I don't know if I can. And I'm sure you can. Can you breathe? Can you talk? Are you having hoarseness? Did you maybe have some acid reflux that took your voice for a while? Well, let's rebuild that. There's ways in which we can. My mom, who was originally a professional singer when she was in college, she got calluses on her vocal cords, and it kind of changed the way her ability to sing. But she refound some ways in which she could sing differently and still continue on. So that's what I love to do with people, Blaine, is to find what their contribution can be. Maybe it's playing spoons on the back row.
Well, if I can give a shout out to somebody, I think I have the pronunciation correct. Lenore, is it Tom?
Lenora Tom, an
Tom.
amazingly talented lady.
Amazing. And real quick, the story was that Jerry Crouch several years ago did a thing at ACT, Business Sings Broadway. And I said I'd volunteer to be in it, and I had to go through an audition. And I real quick story, but it segues into what you said, is that as a kid I wanted to take singing lessons. 5, 6 years old. I say to my mother, "Can I take singing lessons?" She brings me to somebody who plays the piano, and afterwards she comes out, and all I know is I never got to take singing lessons. So the point of the story, Chuck, kid you not, for 50 years I wouldn't sing. Nothing. So for Lenore Tom, 50 years later, I had to do an audition, and she told me I can carry a tune. And I was so amazed by that. For 50 years, I wouldn't even sing Happy Birthday. And because she said I could carry a tune, to her credit. And I was in the show, a couple of shows, I don't have a great singing voice, but wasn't that something that we can mess people up by discouraging them as kids?
we can really squelch people's spirits. And I tell you, my father trained me that it may be raining outside, but that just means that the grass is going to be greener tomorrow. So that's, I think, where I get my positivity from. My favorite color is yellow, as you can tell from what I'm wearing. And so what Lenora was saying to you, she was just affirming she didn't do that to you. You could actually sing. And so we just have to be really careful with the way we language to people, even if we're in jest, that we don't squelch their spirit in any way, whether it's they're trying visual arts for the first time, or they're trying their hand at rhyming, or yes, be honest, but don't be mean.
Yeah. And you mentioned it's a shame probably with so many students are turned off by singing or turned off by acting or something. And it's, I guess, a fine line you have to balance between two things as teacher, being, as you said, honest, but also not being discouraging, and it's
Totally. And we have measurables at the university. Shame on me if I just do social promotion. I have a student at UNCA that when they first came to me, they were struggling with matching pitch. They had so much enthusiasm and they understood music, but they wanted to be a singer. And so I had to be honest when they weren't getting what we consider to be the measurable standards. But I said, I think I can help you, but it's going to be, your path is going to be a little more challenging than others. But if you can stick with it, unfortunately, it's going to take about a year or to a year and a half. I had to be really honest. And we're not patient, Blaine. We are so smart. We want we'll give it maybe 1 week, maybe 2. This student stuck with it, and I could not be prouder of the work that they have done. Will they be singing in the Metropolitan Met next year? Opera? No. But they have really discovered something about themselves through the hard work, and they did it. I coached them, but they did the work. So it's possible.
So it's interesting. Some of this can be learned then? I
Absolutely. I was not a great singer.
Yeah.
When I went to college and I auditioned at UNC Greensboro, I wanted to be a big time music guy, and I was going to the great college. The faculty, the voice faculty there said, that was nice. Do you happen to play any other instruments? Now imagine that. They did not accept me into their program. So I licked my wounds, and I came home and I worked in my dad's company for a while. And then I had the opportunity to start conducting in the area. And then when I finally got back to college, I learned how to become a classical singer as opposed to just being a cute entertainer.
And mention that
it can't be learned.
Also in terms of the whole process of auditioning, and you work with lots of folks too. And it's a shame, Chuck, because some people get very discouraged, I guess, by the process, that they go out for a show and they don't get it. And explain, what that actually means. Doesn't mean a heck of a lot with respect to their future careers, but some people get so discouraged.
They do, and it's such a tough business. This is probably the thing I'm worried about with my daughter. She's amazingly talented, but there are hundreds at her level, amazingly talented people. Any one of those hundreds of people auditioning could do a great job. So, you have to have an internal fortitude. But what I work with amateurs on is there's a couple of techniques that really matter. If you walk out on that stage and you're already apologizing for standing there and you haven't sung a note yet, and then you heard this cool song the night before and you couldn't wait to, and you thought that'll be the right song, I'll just memorize it, and I'm going to be the most nervous I've ever been in my life, and now I'm going to try to do something amazing. That's hard. So I work with students or anybody that's preparing that says, I have an audition in a couple days, can you help me? I say, okay, what do you know? What have you known? Can you sing cold? If I ask you math problems, can you keep singing it, but answer the math problem on the board? You're laughing, but it's true. Like, what do you know so well in your heart? And then what do you care about? Because I have listened to thousands of auditions, and I can tell if that actor is trying to tell me a story in that 30 seconds. Usually I know within 5 seconds. Are they telling me a story? Or are they singing me a song? If they're telling me a story, then I might want to watch them for an hour on stage. If they're singing me a song, it's okay, that was nice, but I want to be moved. Cause me to look up from my paper and go, oh, that's interesting. Well, you have some rough edges, but I care. And so that's what I work with people. Tell me a story.
How important is enthusiasm in the process?
That's a tough one. I try not to. I am an enthusiastic person,
right?
But you may be an extreme introvert, but have an ability. Be a phenomenal dancer who can tell a good story, but maybe it's not going to be the happy story. Maybe you connect with darker emotions, and so there might be a role for you. The biggest thing, I really think people show up for musicals thinking it's about the singing. And I'm a weird music director, Blaine, in that I care about the acting. Can you act through the song, not just sing a pretty song? So I think there's a place for everybody if you just kind of can be honest and authentic.
You're talking about the toughest thing. I remember that thing I mentioned with Jerry Crouch. And so it was a song, and then the acting to the song. And then the day before, it was so funny, Chuck, he threw in choreography, and so we had all these people who had never danced in our lives, and we're running into each other and bumping into each other. Unfortunately, we were amateurs, but that's, another part of the process that you have to put it all together.
I wonder how my actors do it. I mean, these classic musicals, from the golden
Right.
age, they'll have 12-minute dance numbers that they have to sing in. They have
Yeah.
to sing and then dance their booties off and then turn around and sing go up a whole step and sing even higher. I was like, I'm so glad you have to do it, not me.
Yeah.
I can't even remember 2 lines of a Christmas carol I've been singing my whole life. How do you memorize the entire song and then these dance combinations?
Well, and again, that was Sweet Charity. It was so good at the dancing that, I mean, it's a great musical, whatever, but the dancing I thought was phenomenal, for college
Oh, and
students.
our choreographer, Ms. Amanda, was amazing.
Yeah, it
What
was
she
just,
could pull
wait,
off.
who was it again?
Amanda Hoyt.
Yeah, it just,
Uh,
yeah,
she was phenomenal at being able to sense the talent. She had a vision for the show, understood Fosse and understood the music, but then could also tailor it to the student level. We didn't have all dance majors in our show, and that's an understatement.
yeah, but it was very, very well done. Down the road, Chuck, what's next on your agenda for Chuck Taft?
Oh, that is so funny. I'm moving my daughter in tomorrow, and then I should probably look at my calendar for the next day. No, I'm very blessed having, I said this in the beginning, I grew up here, I stayed, and I've gotten great opportunities. So I've been on faculty at UNCA for almost 20 years now, very part-time as adjunct professor conducting the university chorale and teaching voice. And then I was a student at Mars Hill, although I didn't finish, and I just recently joined faculty there. And last year, in their musical theater department, teaching voice, and then music directing, and doing some other work there. And then, so I'm just going to go back to doing my stuff with the Reuters Center Singers, Givens Estates, and all those other choirs as well. Interestingly, since all this other stuff has taken off, I haven't had a lot of time to do a musical theater in the area. I sort of miss it, but I kind of exchanged parenting 3 kids for a while. And as I got 2 of them out of the house, our youngest son enrolled in the School of Science and Math. We moved him in on Friday, and Kaylee going to college. So maybe that's going to free me up a little bit to do some more theater in the area again.
You have a favorite show you'd like to do?
There are so many great shows. I've done 2 amazing shows that I'd like another shot at. One was Parade. Steve Lloyd had a vision to bring Parade to Hart Theater back in 2001, I want to say. And I was right at the beginning of my understanding of that. I'd like another shot at that show. That show is so complex and so beautiful. Jason Robert Brown poured his compositional heart into that. It's a difficult show. And the other show that I love, love, love is Light in the Piazza. It's such a bizarre, complex musical, artistic piece. And I loved every moment I had a chance. And I've music directed it twice, and I would love to do it again.
Again, Jill also describing that show. Did you do that when it was at Hart?
I did it at Hart, and I did it at SART.
I saw it. I'm sorry. I saw it. I thought it was such a magnificent performance. I just loved it. And yeah, that's right. I mean, I don't know how you could top that one. That was up there. And they had Liz and just a great show. Chuck, if folks want to get in touch with you to find out more about what you're doing, or to ask you to come on board some other project in your spare time, what's the best way to reach you?
Probably, I have a website, chucktaft.com. You can email me or find out stuff about me, or you can find me on Facebook, Chuck Taft. Just Google my name. Several things will come up. I'm just so lucky to still be working and getting a chance to perform right here in Western North Carolina.
So I'd thank you for being my guest, Chuck, on this podcast episode.
Blaine, I'd like to say, I could tell you're getting ready to end. I appreciate you. You have been on the front row of so many shows in so many theaters. I don't know how you and Cynthia do it. She's an amazing woman as well, but you show up, and we need theaters. Actors need an audience, and you show up, and I'm just really grateful for that.
Okay, well, I'm grateful for you. I'd also like to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti. Hopefully we'll see you sometime in the near future, Chuck. Be well, my friend.
Thank you.